One family party, one accident, and one decision from my mother that destroyed every bond between us. Thanksgiving always made my mother happier than any other day of the year. She loved the noise, the crowded rooms, the long table covered with too many dishes, and the feeling that the entire family was under one roof. But as soon as I stepped inside the house after 7 long years, I felt something inside me tighten. The smell should have been comforting: roasted turkey, mashed potatoes with too much butter, cinnamon from the pumpkin pie she always made early in the morning. The living room should have felt warm and familiar. The laughter of my relatives should have pulled me back into that old family circle. But instead, everything felt like I was walking into someone else's life. People greeted me, hugged me, smiled too wide like they didn't know what to say after all the time that had passed. I answered politely, but my mind kept drifting. I wasn't used to this house anymore, or these walls, or these memories. 7 years is long enough to change a person. Long enough to build a new world, or to lose one. I took a seat near the end of the dining table, hoping to disappear into the noise. Maybe if I stayed quiet, Thanksgiving would pass without anyone asking the question I had heard 100 times before I left town. Maybe this time, everyone would focus on my sister, the newlywed, the pride of the family. But of course, Mom had other plans. She rushed around the table fixing spoons, moving napkins, straightening plates that didn't need straightening. Every few seconds she looked at me, as if making sure I was still there and hadn't slipped away again. When she finally sat down, she placed her hand on my shoulder with a smile that was too sweet, too controlled. "So," she said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "your sister's wedding was great. Everyone loved it. The photos turned out so beautiful." She laughed proudly, then looked right at me. "Now tell me, when's yours?" It felt like the air got stuck in my throat. Around the table, forks paused. Heads turned. That familiar pressure spread across my chest, the same pressure I felt all those years ago when people whispered about me, asked about my future, asked about her, asked what went wrong. I forced a polite smile. "Mom." And then I saw her. Emma. She was standing by the window, half hidden behind a small group of relatives, holding a cup of tea with both hands. She always held her cup that way. Like it warmed her fingers. Like it grounded her. The steam rose slowly, touching her face, softening the outline of her eyes. Those same eyes lifted and found mine. For a moment, everything around me faded. The voices, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, all of it melted until there was just her. 7 years had passed, but she hadn't changed the way memory had warned me she would. She still had that quiet presence, gentle, careful, almost fragile. Her dark hair fell the same way, her posture was the same mix of shy and strong, and her eyes still held that softness that once made me feel safe. But now there was something else in them too. Something like hesitation. Or guilt. Or fear. I couldn't tell. I tried to look away, but my heart didn't follow. Mom's question hung in the air, waiting. "When's your wedding?" she repeated, this time more lightly, like it was all a harmless joke. I knew what she expected. A laugh, a playful promise, maybe a shy confession that I had no one yet. Something she could turn into a conversation, something she could twist into advice about settling down or not wasting more time. But I was done pretending. I breathed in, slow and controlled. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I had mine." Silence. The kind of silence that made every other sound feel louder, the clicking of the wall clock, the faint bubbling of gravy in the kitchen, even the rustling of someone shifting in their chair. Mom blinked, confused. "What do you mean, you had yours?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. Emma lowered her eyes. Her fingers tightened around her cup, like she was holding onto something fragile, or holding back something important. Her shoulders drew in just a little, like she was bracing herself for something she already knew was coming. I kept my gaze on the table, pretending the turkey in front of me was suddenly interesting. But I could feel her looking at me again. Not directly, but in that way someone watches you from the corner of their eye, hoping, fearing, remembering. People started whispering. "You got married." "When? To who? Why didn't he tell anyone?" Mom tried to laugh. "Oh, come on, stop teasing. You didn't get married. We would have known." But I just repeated, more softly, "I had mine." This time, no one questioned it. Mom's smile faded. The tension I had tried so hard to bury for 7 years rose like smoke in the air. I glanced at Emma again. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't curious. She wasn't shocked. Instead, she looked hurt. Or maybe relieved. Or maybe both. Seeing her like that pulled something deep inside me, an old wound, still raw even after so much time. I had built a new life, moved to a new city, learned how to breathe without her, but one look at her and it felt like the past had never ended. 7 years ago, she walked out without a word. No explanation. No fight. Just silence. She left me confused, angry, and alone. And even now, standing in front of my entire family, I still didn't know the full truth. But she did. And when Mom asked that question, when she pushed like she always did, something inside me finally snapped free. Not in anger. Not in revenge. But in clarity. The past wasn't gone. It was standing right there by the window, holding a cup of tea with shaking fingers. Mom sensed the shift. Her smile grew smaller, her posture stiff. She didn't understand yet, but she knew something had opened, something she couldn't control this time. I leaned back in my chair, breathing out slowly, letting the truth sit between all of us. This Thanksgiving, I hadn't come for turkey or family warmth or old memories. I had come for closure. And without knowing it, Mom had just pulled the first thread loose. Emma still couldn't look at me. Mom still waited for an answer she didn't want. And I was just getting started. The noise inside the house grew louder as more people started talking again, but none of it felt real to me. My mind was stuck between the past and the present, bouncing back and forth like a door caught in the wind. I needed space. I needed air that didn't smell like memories. So I stepped outside. The porch was cold, the wood slightly damp from the evening frost that had started to settle. The lights from inside spilled through the window, warm and bright, but out here everything felt quieter, softer, more honest. I leaned against the railing and took a slow breath, watching it disappear in the cold air. I didn't hear the door open behind me. I only felt a shift in the air, a familiar presence. When I turned my head, there she was. Emma. She stood only a few feet away, her arms wrapped around herself, as if she needed to keep something inside from falling apart. The porch light touched her hair, turning it golden around the edges. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in the way someone looks when they've been holding too many secrets for too long. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. We just stood there, breathing the same cold air, pretending we didn't feel the weight of 7 silent years pressing on us. "You got married," she finally whispered, her voice quiet and shaky, like she wasn't sure she had the right to ask. I didn't look at her when I answered. "Yeah. Years ago." I kept my tone flat, but everything inside me tightened. Because the truth was, I didn't have to say the words that lived behind the ones I spoke. Because of you. Because you left. Because I thought I didn't matter to you. But she heard them anyway. Her eyes dropped to the floorboards. "You didn't tell anyone." I let out a slow, steady breath. "You didn't tell me either." That made her flinch, a small, almost invisible movement, but I caught it. She looked out into the dark yard, like the night might give her strength. "I didn't know how," she said softly. Her voice carried a mix of shame and sadness, but also something else, something like fear. Fear of what I might say next. Fear of the truth that stood between us. The wind picked up suddenly, brushing her hair across her face. She tucked it behind her ear, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times before. And that was all it took to pull me back into memories I thought I had buried long ago. A car ride. Her crying beside me. My hand on hers. "What's wrong, Emma? Just trust me. Please." I had trusted her. I would have trusted her with my whole future. But the very next morning, she was gone. Now, standing here, her fingers trembled slightly as she held onto her scarf. She wasn't hiding it well. She was never good at hiding anything when she was hurting. "You moved to another city," she said, her voice barely above the whisper of the wind. "I had to," I replied. "There was nothing left for me here." She swallowed, her throat tightening visibly. "And your wife, is she happy?" "She was," I answered slowly. I didn't give details. I didn't need to. The word did enough damage by itself. Her breathing changed, slow at first, then uneven. She wiped at her eyes quickly, pretending it was just the cold, but we both knew better. She looked up at me again, and for the first time that night, she seemed honest. Completely honest. Like she had finally stopped trying to hide behind polite words and half-truths. "Why does it feel like you're angry at me?" she asked. The question broke out of her like it had been trapped inside too long. I can feel it, even after all these years. I stared at her for a long moment. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because the answer was too big, too painful, too full of things I'd never been able to say. Finally, I let the truth slip out. "Because," I said quietly, "you still won't tell me the truth about that night." Her entire body froze. It was subtle, a tightening in her shoulders, a sharp inhale she tried to hide, but it was enough. I knew that reaction. I knew it better than I wanted to admit. She was terrified. Not of me, but of something she'd kept locked away for 7 years. The truth wasn't gone. It was alive. Heavy. Sitting right there in her silence. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. Her eyes darted to the doorway like she was afraid someone might overhear. Then she looked back at me, her expression raw and unguarded. She started, but her voice cracked. I didn't push her. Part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted to demand answers, demand explanations, demand the closure I never got. But the other part, the part that still remembered how deeply I once cared for her, waited. Gave her space. "I didn't leave because I wanted to," she whispered, her words trembling. My heart pounded once, hard. But she didn't continue. Instead, she looked like someone had placed an invisible hand over her mouth. Like she was fighting something bigger than guilt. Inside, laughter rose again from the dining room. Loud, bright, the complete opposite of what was happening between us. The sound drifted out through the window, reminding me how disconnected I felt from all of it. Emma suddenly wrapped her arms around herself tighter. I thought, maybe things wouldn't be so hard if I avoided today. But your mom insisted I come. She said it would be good for the family. My eyebrows pulled together. "Mom told you to come." She nodded, wiping away a tear that slid down before she could stop it. She always finds a way to pull me back when I try to stay away. Something cold brushed through my stomach, a feeling I didn't fully understand yet. Emma wasn't lying. I could feel it in the way her voice shook, but I also knew she wasn't saying everything. And suddenly, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not closure, but recognition. Something was off. Something had been off since the moment she looked up at me in that dining room and couldn't hold my gaze. She was hiding something important. Something big. Something connected to that night 7 years ago. I looked at her again, really looked, and this time I didn't see the girl who walked away. I saw the girl who was pushed, cornered, pressured into silence. And I wasn't sure which hurt more. She took a shaky breath. I never wanted things to happen the way they did. I stepped toward her, closing the space between us just enough that our words wouldn't drift into the cold air. "Then tell me the truth," I said softly. Her eyes filled with tears again. But she didn't speak. And in that moment, I understood something without her saying a word. She was afraid of someone. Not me. Not the past. Someone else. Someone inside that house. And the truth was about to break everything open. The night air felt heavier now, thick with things unsaid. Emma stood in front of me, her eyes full of tears she kept trying to blink away. Every time she opened her mouth to speak, she closed it again, like the truth was pushing at her from the inside but she couldn't let it out. Inside the house, laughter rose again, bright, warm, careless. It felt wrong. It felt unreal. It felt like a different world from the one we were standing in. I watched her for a long moment, my breath turning to small clouds in the cold. "Emma," I said quietly, "tell me what really happened." She shook her head, whispering, "I can't, not out here." Her voice trembled, not because of the cold, but because she was moments away from breaking. She finally looked up at me, her eyes wide with fear, not fear of me, but fear of what the truth might do. "We can't keep pretending this didn't happen," I said, softer now. "It's been 7 years." She let out a painful breath, her shoulders slumping. "I know," she whispered. "But you don't understand. I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because I was told to." Something sharp tightened inside my chest. By who? I asked. Her lips trembled. She wiped her face with her sleeve, then looked toward the kitchen window where the golden light spilled out onto the yard. Through the glass, my mother laughed with a distant cousin, her face glowing with the warmth of the holiday. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. Your mom. My heart stopped for a second. Not a full stop, just enough to feel the sudden emptiness. She came to me, Emma continued, her eyes filling again. She showed up at my place the morning after we talked. She told me I wasn't good enough for you. She said your future was too important, that you deserved someone better. Someone from a good family. Someone she approved. I stared at her, stunned. She said that to you. Emma nodded, her jaw shaking. And I believed her, she whispered. I was 22. I didn't know how to fight with someone who raised you. I kept thinking, maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't enough. My throat tightened. My mother's voice echoed in my mind, proud, controlling, always convinced she knew what was best. But this was different. This was cruel. Emma continued, the truth pouring out now like a wound finally opened. She told me you had already agreed to end things, that you wanted to leave for your career and didn't want any emotional ties. Her voice cracked. She said you didn't want me. I took a step back, the words hitting me like cold rain. I never said anything like that, I whispered. I know that now, Emma said, wiping her cheeks again. But back then, I was scared. I thought you didn't want to face me. I thought you were too proud to say it yourself. Her breathing shook. And then she said something else, something that broke me. I steadied myself. What? She said if I truly loved you, I would walk away quietly. A cold ache spread through me. A familiar old pain. A pain that had once kept me awake for months, wondering why she left without a word. And you believed her? I asked, my voice barely holding steady. Emma closed her eyes. I didn't just believe her. I obeyed her. She shook with regret. I thought I was protecting you from something you didn't want. The porch light flickered above us. A cold breeze swept between us, lifting the loose strands of her hair. I finally exhaled, a long, uneven breath. You should have told me. She nodded, her voice soft and broken. I know. I should have. But by the time I realized the truth, you were already gone. And then your mom, Emma hesitated, fear returning to her eyes. She kept telling me to stay quiet. She said it would only mess up the family picture. I felt something inside me shift, a deep, heavy clarity settling where confusion used to be. The truth wasn't complicated. It wasn't mysterious. It was simple. My mother ruined us. Not with violence. Not with hatred. But with manipulation disguised as love. I straightened and looked at the glowing house. The windows, the decorations, the laughter, everything suddenly felt fake. The walls that once felt like home now felt like barriers built out of lies. Emma watched me carefully. Where are you going? She asked, noticing the change in my posture, the decision forming in my eyes. For my revenge, I said. Not anger. Not destruction. Just truth. Clean, honest, unfiltered truth. I walked toward the door. The handle felt cold under my fingers. I pushed the door open, and the warm wave of chatter washed over me again. My mother looked up immediately, her face bright, cheerful, confident in her perfect holiday picture. Everything okay? She asked, smiling the way hosts smile when they think everything is under control. I smiled back, calm, collected, but sharp enough to slice through the room. Yeah, I said. Just needed some air. My relatives returned to their food, but my mother kept looking at me. She sensed something was wrong. Her smile trembled just a little. And that was all the opening I needed. Actually, I continued, voice carrying enough for the table to hear, there's something everyone should know. Forks paused. Heads turned slowly. Even Emma, still standing near the doorway, froze. My mother's smile vanished completely. Mom, I said gently, almost lovingly, remember when you said Emma wasn't right for me? When you told her to leave me 7 years ago? When you said I deserved better? The table went silent. Completely silent. My mother's face paled slowly, the color draining from her cheeks like ink drying on paper. I didn't, she started, panic in her voice. I lifted a hand, stopping her. No need to deny it. I know now. Emma told me the truth. Emma stood in the doorway, tears streaming quietly, her hands pressed together like she was bracing herself for an earthquake. I continued, my voice steady, low, controlled. Mom, today you asked when my wedding is. I let the words sink in. Well, it already happened. It happened because the person I loved was pushed away. By you. A wave of shock rippled through the table. Someone gasped. Someone dropped a spoon. My mother took a step back, her lips trembling. I looked at her one last time, not angry, not yelling, just honest. My wedding happened the day you broke your son's life. The silence that followed was deeper than any scream. Without another word, I walked out, leaving the warmth, the lights, and the lies behind me. Behind me, Emma covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. My mother reached out a hand toward me, too late now, her perfect holiday picture burning around her. And as I stepped into the cold night, I felt something inside me finally settle. Not victory. Not bitterness. Just peace. Final line. Sometimes revenge is simple. You just tell the truth at the moment it hurts the most.